Всем привет. Well, I'm studying in English. I forgot which language to use. So yes, switching to English. Today my guest is Greek conductor Ektoras Tartanis, and I'm inviting him now. A good evening.
Good evening.
You know, I actually I studied Greek for 1 month, but I think I
Really?
forgot everything.
It's hard if you don't practice.
I can't see the connection. It,
Uh, is it better now, Julia?
is your connection okay?
Yeah, it's good.
Last
It's
time
full.
it was better. Okay.
Do you hear me? Is it
So
okay?
are we connected? Well, yes, but with some delay.
I hear you clearly and like it's all good.
Mhm. Okay. So let's start. Um, Hopefully, Germany now returns to normal, but we have an hour to talk more, less about your present, but more about your past. And then, if we have time, maybe you'll talk. You'll tell me if you have some projects for summer in these uncertain times. Well, I'm
Absolutely.
really interested in your biography. It seems extraordinary. I actually was in Thessaloniki for summer school once. Could you tell me if you remember what is your memory of choosing the music path? Like how it came about?
Yes, so I don't come from a musical family, so it was not natural in a way. It was natural in the way that my parents were always music lovers and listened to music, and that's how I grew up. And I had my first contact with music. Um, and then basically, my mother bought a piano. She wanted to play the piano, and she stopped after a week. And when I was like 3 or something at that time, and then I started to show some interest and clapping on the instrument. And so she said, "Well, now we have the instrument, so let's just give some give some lessons to the kid." And that's how it started, like very playfully. But I liked it, and I showed interest, and I was staying with it. It was not uh, you know a one time show. I really was there for years, and then by myself I just got more into bigger, like into chamber music, into orchestral music, and started to get into musical scores and analyze it and compose music. Then
Hmm.
yes, that's how it developed. And then I was showing interest in conducting, and so it came, step by step. I
What do you feel when you actually kind of enter into the field of music? How it is different from you walking, you talking, you reading? What kind of what is special uh, about this activity as sort of part of the human life? Why do you think it's different from other things?
Well, I can only talk about myself and what I really appreciate about my profession. I never call it a job. It's really a profession for me. What I love is that it's so strongly connected with my own personality. Like I really cannot split it. Like I see many friends or people there saying I go to my job and I do that, and then I do my own things, or it's different things for them. Like I do that, and then yeah, and for me it's so strongly connected to my own personality, and I feel whenever I grow as a human being, whenever I learn something, whenever it's all music for me in a way. I try to establish it in my artistic thinking, and apply it to music, to conducting, to composing, to whatever it is. Because I think, yes, I think in such terms, and it's just connected.
Can I ask? I actually rarely ask this question, but you know, I'm always wondering how your perception, like today you said you were traveling and said, let's imagine you came back. Could you write, say, a piece about a day of travel? Basically, can human experiences be transformed into a piece of music? Can any of your experience become your music?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, it depends how you see it. If you look at it from a composer's perspective, to take it and to create something really new or really personal, or if you take an experience and somehow let it influence you as a person and thus influence your work as a conductor, for instance, or a musician or a violin player. Um, so in that way, I believe yes. For instance, I think if you go out, like I was hiking today, the whole day was into woods and traveling. And it was really beautiful, 26 degrees here in Germany. It's awesome summer. Like I was, you know, it's been years since I played the piano, but if I was playing the piano, or say a violin player did that, and then you start playing Bach suites or sonatas for solo violin, I believe it gives you some special kind of inspiration to your activity. I would be stunned if that is not the case. And if you write music, I think it's the same thing. You know, you suck all those experiences in, and you make them yours, and they influence you. You want it or not.
Can you describe your studies firstly in composition and piano in Greece, and then your switch to conducting and moving to England and then to Germany? Why did you decide first to change the field, like to add a new field to your studies, and secondly to move to other country?
Yeah. So because that is not clear, maybe I have to write that more clear into my biography. But like, I'm Greek, my parents are Greek, but I was born in Germany.
Really? Okay.
I never lived in Greece. So I'm working there, I'm conducting there, but yes, I never lived there actually. But it's, you know, it's my roots and it's my spiritual roots, and I'm strongly connected to the country. And I would consider myself, I would say, even more Greek than German. But I never experienced real life there. You know, it's always from outside. So, but yes, in fact, I started with composition and music theory, but I always wanted to conduct, and it went at the same time, you know, simultaneously. And but I started with that in Stuttgart, in Germany, where I grew up, and it was just, you know, kind of, it's a big discussion. We have 1 hour, but maybe we can get into it a little bit. I find it a bit disappointing the way contemporary music works nowadays, and how it's taught in many universities, and how young people are put into dogmas and into beliefs of, you know, certain schools and styles, and this is avant-garde, and this is new style, and this is good, and this is bad, and you cannot use that, and you should use that. Like, there are many formulas of shoulds and, you know, don'ts, and I just felt, after a year and a half, I felt very like I won also a prize, and I was interested in that. It's still, I would say, it's my biggest passion to write music, and whenever I have a free minute, I use it for that, because, you know, I'm not professionally a composer. I don't get money from that. I don't live from that, basically. But, you know, without that, I think I couldn't be happy as a musician. And I was just very disappointed the way I was pushed to do things as a composer, and I thought, no, it's just not my path. I should study conducting, and that's something I love as well, and I want to get better in, and I want to make a living by that, and I want to get as far as possible. And composing will be my secret baby in a way. You know, that's how I defined it for myself, to have a clear mind. You know, and I draw so much inspiration of other contemporary composers, of classical composers, of modern composers,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel it's more my way to develop and to create my own language in music than with professional studies and that official way, so to say, you know.
Mm-hmm. But with conducting, can you say that you learned in a special school of conducting? Can you define it? Did your teachers put you into a certain frame of conducting?
Yes, so my first teacher was Scandinavian in Stuttgart, and he so very much the Nordic conducting school, coming from Jorma Panula
Ah,
and
yes.
those guys.
Who was your teacher?
Per Borin is his
Mm-hmm.
name. He was
Mm-hmm.
a colleague of Esa-Pekka Salonen,
Mm-hmm.
and they were students of Jorma Panula, the big conducting guru in in Stockholm.
Mm-hmm.
But I hated it, to be honest. It was not my thing, so I stopped there and I went to Austria, and then I went to England, and then I went back to Austria, and there I finished my studies, and yeah, then I met Theodore, and basically, you know, I learned a lot from him when it comes to technique and be to be a conductor, the way your personality works, like in a way, bringing in balance your personality and your way of conducting,
Mm-hmm.
and that's, I think, the key really, because I really switched my perception of conducting. Um, you know, when I started in Stuttgart, I it sounds weird, but I really didn't know, and I didn't figure out what it was about. You know, like you have a teacher and he tells you you have to move your hands that way, or you have to move that way, or we have a problem here, and but it's not your problem. It's, you know, it's so theoretical and it's so abstract and it's so formalized, that I couldn't do anything with it. I did it technically, and it was okay, but I felt empty. I felt totally empty as a musician, and I couldn't explain it because many people went along well with that way of teaching and learning, and it was not my way, you know. And also there, yeah, I think all the musicians have to find their own way in the end of the day. And
So
um,
basically, your way is not a brainy intellectual one, but combining your personality and emotional life, and then kind of bringing them into performance, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And you see, if you have a conductor, for instance, who does a movement, I don't know, maybe you have to be a conductor to really see and feel it, but I see immediately if an action of conducting, if a movement of a conductor is just a movement, or if it is really connected to the personality of the person
Mm-hmm.
and to a certain meaning he wants to put into the music.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel that all the schools, or say the schools I experienced, I don't want to, you know, make it more general than it is, they standardize things so much that it becomes a very dry, not even, I cannot call it art even, a very dry performance of movement. And I don't feel the intention, I don't feel the music, and I don't feel the meaning behind all of that with many conductors. And that was actually, there I did a big leap with Theodore, because I learned a lot from him in that regard.
But here you see there is a paradox, because I know that conducting involves a lonely preparation, reading the score, analyzing, seeing all the details, and then sort of you integrate it into your brain, and then you have to make the sleep that you described. so that all the things you learn become not disconnected from you, but sort of part of yourself. And then plus there is an orchestra, which is another factor that you can't predict. And all your preparation and your being yourself and being connected to yourself then should be also kind of a new connection should be made with an orchestra. Isn't it a difficult psychological path to go through?
I think it takes a lot of time. You're absolutely right, because it's not something you learn. It's something you understand, and something you have to understand again, and something you have to understand in your daily practice with an orchestra, in your daily practice in preparation. It's a process which develops you and which brings you closer to who you are. You know, it's a bit like meditating, I feel. And that's why I feel that whenever I grow as a person, I grow as a musician. That is that is a thing which is really connected for me, because I understand something, I grab something. Yes, you have to give it into practice. You have to feel your own way of applying it into practice with other people, with orchestras, with whatever it is. And then it becomes yours. And then it becomes also new, So, and with composition, it's the same thing. You have a repertoire of tools, of sounds, of whatever it is, but you have to dig into yourself. You have to go into yourself. You have to suck all that information and all those tools into you, make them yours, and then something new will come out. But that is a process of digestion, and I don't want to sound like I got it, or I'm just saying that this is my way of developing as a musician. And it takes time, but in the end of the day, I feel it's worth it, because I feel connected to what I'm doing and to my personality.
And in a way, there is a new paradox here, because if you are not doing the contemporary music, you basically prepare a piece that has been played 400 times. Well, any
Absolutely.
Mahler, any Beethoven. But then, because it is you, because it is a moment in your life, because it's a moment in the life of 100 musicians, it becomes something completely new, even though we would think that it has been played for 100 times or whatever, for 1,000 times before. How do you feel this element of newness in the things that you're doing?
It's a very good point. It's a very good point, and I'm very frustrated about that point in general. If it comes to our profession, because I feel that when you look at concerts and when you look at CD releases, or all those kind of performances, to me there are very, very rare moments where I feel I have a new information and I have a new input as a musician, or as an audience, as an artist, whatever. It's really more a reproduction of things that happens here, rather than a development of even old material. And you hear that phrase all the time. Oh yeah, Beethoven is contemporary, Beethoven has to teach us a lot, and Bach, and they're all actual. And yeah, it's true, they are, but it takes even more effort to put the new information of that old music into our time. And it's possible, and there are artists who are able to do that, but it's hard. It's possible, but it's hard. And it's a different approach. It's really a different approach.
Working with Theodore, I'm sure you will answer yes, but I want you to go deeper into this. Is personality of a conductor important for a performance? Like all the visual stuff, man, woman, age, uh, movements, gestures, and do you have to be sort of almost like a circus a performer on stage?
No, not at all. Not at all. I don't think also this discussion of woman, of man, of, you know, like in our days, there are so many young conductors, it becomes a more young profession. Whenever I see people and I tell them, you know, we meet and they're, oh, you're a conductor. I thought they're all old and with gray hair, and that's very strange to me that you can be a yeah. I think it's, again, it's really, as a musician and especially as a conductor, you're exposed to a lot of people. You're visible to the audience and to the orchestra. You're totally naked up there. And what is important in the end of the day is to be real, you know, to know what you're doing, to have done your homework, to know what you want as a musician, to know what you want with that piece. And that's, again, you know, the bridge to your old point that I feel we listened to the old repertoire, to a Brahms symphony, like to Brahms, right? You know, I have it in my ear. I grew up with all the Karajan recordings, like many of us, I think, you know, and it takes so much time to get all those old habits out of your head and really try to see the score and the music blank and to see what does it tell, you know, what does it tell it to me, and what does the music itself speak about without my preconception of it. And I can do that whole process of preparation and diving into the meaning of music only if I'm in a way empty and free of old ballast, you know. And that can be done by a young person. It can be done by a woman, by a man, by a grandpa, by everyone. It's you know, that's not the point. That's very, it's not the main issue.
Which moment in the process you like the most in terms of communication? Do you like rehearsals? Do you like the first meeting of an orchestra? Is it a difficult moment, or is it a beautiful moment of reconciliation of different forces? Or do you like the audience and the applause and the final bravo or not bravo results?
So the most difficult moment is the applause. Actually, difficult because I have a very strong perception of what is happening, and actually I don't. It doesn't count a lot what other people are telling to me. You know, if I got a lot of applause, but I'm not satisfied with the product, it can be as much applause as they want. You know, it won't change my mood or my day. But what I enjoy most really is the process with the orchestra. The most difficult, also not difficult, but the most exciting is the first meeting with an orchestra, especially if it's new, because you don't know, are they open to rehearsal? Are they closed? Are they, you know, what's their mentality? Do they want to work? Do they just want to play a concert and get the applause? And, you know, it's also a mentality of a group. But especially if an orchestra is open to rehearsals and to, you know, working together with a conductor. That's also a point. You know, the conductor was years ago the personification of the enemy for an orchestra. And now we come to the point where we actually start to really cooperate and to build bridges and to have a mutual respect to each other. And that is beautiful, because like that you can develop, you know. And what I love especially, there are moments where I experience that. Like, I haven't worked with, I don't know, as an assistant I worked with Freiburg Baroque, but also the Deutsche Kammerphilharmonie Bremen, for instance, like orchestras which, you know, they have a freelance mentality and they want to work, and they are eager to share their experience, and you get a lot back as a conductor from such orchestras, and there a real connection can be made, and that's the most exciting thing. And then of course the performance, it's, you know, it's one package, you get it all, and without the performance it wouldn't be worth it, I guess. But the real development, I think, comes with the rehearsal, and the real experience comes with the concert.
You have worked with quite a lot of German orchestras, both orchestral and in the opera houses. Is there a sort of general thing you could say about German orchestras? Is there a certain ethics of working? Are they different from other European orchestras? What do you say? Or are they all different from each other as well?
There are differences from orchestra to orchestra, I would say, and I think the German orchestras, how to say, I feel in general that the differences between countries also, you know, like 30 years ago, you would say, I don't know, New York has a different sound than Vienna, and Vienna than Berlin and Munich, and you know, it's all quite individual. And now I feel in general that the spectrum of differentiation when it comes to sound nuances and qualities, it's come more narrow and narrow. So yes, you can still distinguish the difference between the Berlin Philharmonic and the Vienna Philharmonic in a way. I haven't conducted them, but it's yeah, it becomes more narrow, I would say. The the system itself doesn't provide the ambition to be individual, you know, and that I feel is a pity in a way.
Well, can you, if you let me, I will ask some questions about
Please.
Theodor Kurenzis, of course, such a famous figure here in Russia. How
Please.
come, well, how come you have started to work with him? How did you meet?
I met him when I was studying in England still. I was a student of conducting. I did my master's degree. And I went back to Stuttgart, where my parents were for holidays, for Easter. And in fact, I wanted to go to drama theater because I haven't been to drama theater for a long time. And I said, I'm here now for a week, so I would love to see some German drama theater. But the drama theater wasn't played. They didn't have any. So, but they had a concert with the State Orchestra of Stuttgart, the Staatsoper, with Theodor Kurenzis, conductor. And I was like, who's this guy? I never heard his name. Sounds Greek, but not like really Greek, written with a C, and you know, it's like, okay, let's go and look, you know, just with no expectation and nothing. And that was really years ago. That it was like 7 years ago or something. So Theodor was, back then, he was really not the superstar he is now. He was starting to have that big international career. And I went there, and to be honest, I was sitting there and I didn't expect anything. And then this guy comes out with actually hair like mine now, but even more shaved, with the trousers tied, you know, with the boots like that. And I was like, oh my God, really? He's Greek. What is that? You know, what is that? And yes, I just couldn't believe it. And then the music started, he conducted, and I was frozen. I just couldn't move. And I remember the first half was Lied eines fahrenden Gesellen by Mahler, and the second half was Tchaikovsky 6. And after the first half, I went out, I was speechless. And then I went in the second, and I just, you know, I started to sweat, I started to cry, you know, like water came out of every cell of my body, really. It was the most intense musical experience I had. And I just, you know, I was speechless. It was really an epiphany moment for me. And I went behind the stage, still, you know, crying and being like like, I don't know how I looked like. It must have been awful. But I said to him, just, it was amazing. And I, like all the people saying to Theodore, and it's not a lie. It's not a lie. But I think he felt that I was really touched. And I said to him, look, I'm a conducting student, but I really have to see and have to know how you did that. I never even heard something like that, and it never touched, like, not even a CD, not even a legendary recording or something. It was so truly intense, that I, yes, I had to find out how he did that, and I approached him. Yeah, please.
Yes, I just want to say, well, he changes the rhythm, the tempi quite a lot. Like he does his own, or even like inventions, the rubato in many moments. And I was wondering whether you decided to take it into your own school of conducting, like into your own style.
Look, Toscanini went once to Verdi. I don't know what piece he did, but he said to him, Maestro, here, you haven't written a ritardando, but I did with a singer, and I feel that it just has to be. And Verdi said to Toscanini, if you don't feel this rubato, you shouldn't be a musician. It was not written, rubato or ritardando or whatever, but you feel it and you do it. That's easily said, and that doesn't imply that whatever you feel you should do and just do whatever you feel. No, you have to be profound in what you know and what you do. But I don't really feel that he's doing what he wants. I don't think, because I work with him, I know that he's very true to the score and he's very, very detailed in what he wants. And in fact, if you look into the score and if you listen to a recording of his, it's the most profound recording and performance you can find. As an example, you can check, for instance, the Le Sacre du Printemps by Stravinsky. There is no preciser recording than that. I can assure you, because I copied the whole score of Stravinsky. I know it by heart. It's perfect. It's really he tries to reach perfection. And for that, you need two things. You need the perfection in terms of correctness to the score, but you need also the individual spice to make it really outstanding. You need both, and the balance of that makes the greatness in the end of the day.
He's an extraordinary figure, but I wondered whether such sort of a personality makes a good teacher. So yes, I'm just asking you how he teaches what he does best himself. It's maybe difficult for him to pass his knowledge to others. Or is he a good teacher as well as an extraordinary conductor and a personality?
That's a good question. I believe that finally you have to be an autodidact, you have to teach yourself. And the things I learned, from instance, by him is mostly by asking him questions and by looking into how he's doing things in rehearsals, for instance, or in concerts or in talks. It gives a lot of insight in how a person thinks and how he approaches things, especially in rehearsal. You see what he's putting an emphasis on, what is important, to him. And he is not the type of person who would tell you that's the way you do it, that's the way in here and here. So he sees you, and some people need more strictness in their musical approach. Some people need more free spirit in their approach, more freedom. And it's an individual balance of how do you teach and how do you lead a person to become more him or herself.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that he has a very good feeling in that. It's a way of how to say, accompanying somebody on his way to get closer to what he or she wants to say.
Mm-hmm. Can you answer some questions that you might maybe not answer, but I was always wondering, firstly, why does he want musicians to stand? Now
Say it
this
again.
has,
Say it again.
why now at all the Musica Eterna concerts they stand? Almost all
Yeah.
musicians are in stand-up positions. Why do you think he does it? And secondly, they are now the strictest in the world collective in terms of videos and photos. They actually asked us to put the phones into special cells outside the hall, and I wondered why.
I heard of that. Yeah, I heard crazy stories about that. It's great. I love it. I love it. So to the first point, I think all the musicians will tell you the same thing. If you if you stay and play, you have another energy. It's really
Mm-hmm.
about the energetic communication. So especially if you play a Mahler piece, which is long and 1.5 hours, or an opera, in the end you're sitting like that and a violin player, and it does something with you. If you have to stay, you have to have a certain posture and a certain energy, and you play more solistic, you play more with more emphasis and with more attention, I would say. And you can really try that out. And there are orchestras which are more flexible now and trying those things out. And I think it's really clear to every musician that it's not a fashion thing. It's not we want to do something different and so we stay or play on our heads, or no. It's really a profound thing. So it has a musical background. And the other thing, which you said about the phones, I mean, really, there is nothing more annoying than a phone ringing in the most pianissimo moment. It happens all the time, or people coughing. I mean, just don't come to the concert if you have asthma non 24/7. It ruins so much for me, as an audience and as a musician. And the point is, you just cannot trust people. It's like in the cinema, they say to you, please turn off your phones, and in the end, you have 2, 3 people getting emails, getting calls, and it just doesn't stop. And in a concert hall with 2,000 people, you get a couple of calls, and I think it's a good thing he does. He just doesn't
Yeah,
want to deal with
yeah,
that.
but I just wanted to say, I felt as an Eastern European mentality person, I felt that I'm being forced to do something, and that's why I have to pretend that I switched off my phone and not to switch it off just because I don't want to. I just
I
even
understand.
felt like being opposite this force of music eterna. So I actually made the picture in the well, and
No, I
yeah.
understand.
Did you have to travel to Russia with him?
Yeah, I traveled twice, 3 times. So 2 times I was an assistant in Perm, and then he invited me to do my own production with Musica Eterna there a year ago. And yeah, most likely we will work together also in Petersburg, but now with Corona and all those things, it just was a mess. So we just wait and see how it develops. But mostly I work with him with SVR here in Europe because it's just organization wise more easy to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, then, can we talk about your own work also? You were a conductor at Wuppertal, right? You also worked with Southwest Radio Symphony Orchestra, SVR, and now you are Well, is the first Kapellmeister is the same as conductor, the first Kapellmeister at Opera House Freiburg? I see that you then must have been involved in a lot of opera productions, right? In these places.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the first Kapellmeister is basically a position. You're a conductor, and it's like a hierarchy thing. So my chief is the general music director of an
Mm-hmm.
opera house. So I'm not the main conductor, if you want. I'm not the general music director of an opera house, but I'm the conductor next to him, basically. And all the productions of the season are splitted between him and me.
Mm-hmm.
So we are the musical directors of all the opera performances.
Can I ask if you can be adventurous in, well, in relatively small towns like this? Well, I know that Wuppertal is famous for Bausch productions and so on, but still they are not Vienna and Berlin, right? So my question is, do you have to be more conservative in these places, or can you play innovative things there?
It's a two-splitted question. So first of all, because I was in Wuppertal as a musical assistant, then I was in Bremerhaven, which is a really, really small city in the north of Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and there is just a certain policy which and a direction, an artistic direction, which each city is following. So in Bremerhaven, for instance, people wouldn't play the big avant-garde pieces of contemporary music, and also not the unknown treasures of Baroque music, for instance. So you try to reach the local audience a lot, and that
Mm-hmm.
itself gives you a quite strict frame. So you won't experiment with a lot of crazy things in that city. In Freiburg, it's different now, because it's a I would say middle-sized but
Mm-hmm.
big city
Mm-hmm.
with a very, it's a good orchestra, and they're not struggling with money, and so you have the capacity to try out things, and it also depends on how much you can be involved in the discussion. Like sometimes, the intendant, the artistic director of an opera house, is just telling to the conductors, you do this, you do that, and it's a top down system. And in Freiburg, I feel that I can, give my ideas, give you know um, indications and propositions to what to do. Like now, I finished a chamber opera, for instance, um, and I we talked about it, and they, maybe we'll do that. Not now, but it's all in the process, and you can experiment and you can try out new things there. Really, it
Mm-hmm.
depends on the culture of the city and the theater.
Can you describe the process of working on an opera? I've been to the rehearsals at the Finnish opera, and I was wondering, what's your experience from a conductor's point of view? Do you meet the artistic team? Do you meet the singers? Do you do the Sitzprobe? And at which moment you have a most challenging periods, and what is most exciting about the opera production?
The opera production, I think it's a lot to do with communication, especially with the director, and with all the main parts, with a good preparation of the singers, with enough time to get things done, and especially with the director. There was also this big discussion of who's more important and who is above. Is it the conductor, is it the director? And again, in the end, it's you just have to have good communication and go into one direction, agree on one direction, and follow it. And if everyone is aiming for the same final product, then I think the whole journey becomes enjoyable. That's what it is about. Because an opera production takes between 5 and 6, 7 weeks in general. So it's really a long period where you work intensely with musicians, with costume designers, with directors, with language, with every aspect of an opera. And if you don't set up a clear direction for everyone, um, it's not going to come into terms. It's not going to fit in the end. And but if it fits, I enjoy really every part. I enjoy being a lot in the scenic rehearsals, just with the piano and the singers, because there I can influence the piece much more. Um, and of course, I enjoy also, the middle stage where you work only musically, and in the end, the stage rehearsals. It's really every time a new experience in opera, and every time it's different because you have different people.
Mm-hmm. Is it difficult to give clues during the production? I was always wondering, how do you follow everyone from being, well, sort of raised only slightly above the stage? How do you see everyone on stage?
No, I see them. That's okay. I see them. Um, and I mean,
do you have to give the clues for each entrance,
no, you
or
don't.
not
You
really?
don't have to. You don't have to. Um, the difficult ones are good to be given for the singers to have, something they can rely on. That's, I think, important.
Mm-hmm.
And important for myself also to know that, this is going well, um, especially in a complicated piece. But you don't have to. And you see many conductors who would just like head down and they just conduct the thing, and it's something is happening up, something is happening down, and whatever comes out comes out. And, yeah, so I try to coordinate it as good as possible. Um, and also there, it's my philosophy, it's not something I want to apply to everyone or say that's the way you should do it. But I'm a lot with the singers, and it's important for me to follow the text, to follow the singing, and to give the singers a good support from down, to follow them, but to give also a clear direction. And for that, I have to be a lot on the stage with my eyes and with my attention. Um, but again, that's my way. I cannot do it differently. I cannot just look down and conduct the orchestra, because it's not a symphony concert. It's a much bigger thing. So and more difficult than concert, of course.
From what you have been describing, it seems that musical world is very hierarchical one. There's so much sort of hierarchy, who tells whom what to do, and without it you can't build the whole final result. But for us, the audience, is it just just an ideal, nice evening? We don't care who shouted at whom or who was angry at whom. So I was wondering, could you comment on this disbalance of music being sort of ideal, beautiful arts, and then all the hierarchies that are behind the stage?
Yeah, it's always like that. I feel, that if you are not behind the scenes, you see things very differently. And I don't want you as an audience to come to a concert and feel how difficult the process was and how much we struggled in the rehearsals and what this guy said, what I said to him, and it's a different world, and it's really much more unromantic than the concert looks like in the end, with the beautiful music and with the conductor moving beautifully and everybody playing nice music. It's just the end result. It's the tip of the iceberg. And I'm also very surprised when I tell my experiences working with musicians to people who are non-musicians, and they're always like, "Oh, really?" And I thought, they're like inspired every day, and like doing their artistic things, and here, and it's the reality is much more different, much more different. But it's good that it stays behind the scene and not in front of the scene.
Building up on this one, is conductor a romantic figure, a physical sort of figure who has, you know, big hands and has to develop his physique, see a mathematically a gifted figure with all the rhythms and all the structures and so on, and D, I don't know, just generally intellectual, knowing quite a lot about composers and their biographies and so on.
I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix because, you know, you have to have all those qualities you're describing. A conductor who has no mathematical understanding will never understand the proportions of a big piece, for instance. A conductor who's not inspired or, you know, not a free spirit will never do something really special. He will just reproduce things. So it's a good mix. You have to be informed. You have to read a lot. You have to know a lot about the time, about the composers, to study the music, to analyze it well, and also there find your own way. But in general, if I want, and I would like to put your question into a, you know, another level, I think that it's really time to develop the role of the conductor and not to make him the hierarchy king, you know, the A figure of a group, just being there and telling what to do and how to do. Because still many musicians, many orchestras demand that from a conductor. That's his role, and everything else, you know, shut up and do your job. And your job is to be the leader and to just tell me what to do. And I think it has to develop more into a cooperation kind of thing and into a more transcendent kind of thing. Because music and classical music, and as a conductor, it's in your hands. It's in your hands to just reproduce music, to just beat the beat, or to really try to create a special experience in the rehearsals for the musicians and the audience and the concert. It's really up into your hands. You have it. And, you know, that's what I mean. If you are not a spiritual person, if you don't feel more behind of what you're doing than just an activity of action, if it's only that, you cannot give more to people. If there is more meaning and more depth behind what you're doing, you start thinking about how to bring that dimension to people and to musicians. And there the interesting part starts of conducting. It's beyond mathematics and historical analysis and all of that. That's all homework. You have to do that. But that's basic. That's very basic. And then the interesting work starts.
Should there be a committee that says you are just waving your hands, go out, and you are doing something
Yes, please. Yes,
from the
please.
good dimension?
Give me that committee. Give me that committee, you know. I would love that. I would love that. I mean, you know, Theodore says that from time to time. He says that we have much more music than we need in our world. And it's true. And we also have much more conductors than we need in our world. Really. There are so many uninspired musicians and conductors and bands and music. You don't need that. You don't need that. It's we have a lot of them and we don't want them anymore. And give me your committee, Yulia.
I'm starting one after our conversation. Well, we have only 6 minutes. It's time to tell us what are your plans for summer, because I know that Europe is starting to open up.
Yes, so we have an alternative program in Freiburg with chamber operas. So to your question, we are experiencing now smaller formats of conducting of operas and communication with the audience. So not a lot of people are allowed in the opera houses. So we will play chamber operas. Kurt Weill we will play The Seven Deadly Sins, Pergolesi Stabat Mater, the Maxwell Davies opera. That's for the next couple of months. Then in summer, I will in September work with the orchestra in Thessaloniki. It's an open air concert in the north of Greece. And the chamber opera I wrote will most likely be performed in Berlin on a boat, something I'm very excited about because it's my first opera and my first big piece. And it's an interesting process to develop that with people. It's with one singer, one dancer, and one actor. And we will come together to rehearse for 3 weeks and have a couple of performances in Berlin in beginning of September, hopefully.
Mhm. How do you decide whom to let in the opera house? You said that the number of tickets is limited, but then there is probably a big queue for them, right?
I have no idea, to be honest. That is something they will experience now because we will open in July and we will start rehearsals now in mid-June in 2 weeks or something. But nobody knows. Will people come? Are they scared? Like, here the restaurants in Germany opened and everybody thought restaurants are closed. They will be running out of food now. But people are not coming. They're half empty. And maybe the same thing will happen with operas too. So in our big hall, 850 people can sit. Now it's restricted to 100, only 100 people. So they have to change the seating. But maybe out of those 100, 20 will come only, or 15, or, nobody knows how it will be. Maybe 100, maybe the queue will be long. We don't know what to expect, to be honest.
But do you think that the social distancing rules will ruin the normal balance in the orchestra if the musicians also have to sit
Oh, definitely.
far apart?
Definitely. There's so strange rules here, like in the rehearsals, you have to have, if you sing, you have to have a distance from each other of 2.5 meters. If you run and sing, you have to have 4 meters. If you stay and talk, you have to have 1.5. Like, it's like that, and I understand you have to have some rules, but it's very difficult for us behind the scenes to make an opera production. And the big fear, of course, is that, now we have an alternative program. We start to rehearse, and under really unideal conditions, and in the end, people might not come. But it might also be amazingly full and, waiting with long queues. Nobody knows how it will be, but it's difficult.
Do you in any dream of yours envision the return to normality, and when?
Absolutely. Now, technically, we hope that we can continue normally in December, January, to have our old planned schedule again with big orchestra and choir, and with a full seating, But there are people who say it will take another year until it will be normal. Normal it was. I don't know how it is in Russia, Julia. Here in Germany, things are changing from day to day.
Well, here is everything is closed. We have 400,000 of people who have the virus, so there is no even question of opening anything,
Really?
Yeah. And the borders, I have no idea when I will be able to travel, even like say to Finland, which is the closest country.
Next door. Crazy, yes. Here, Germany managed to hold it quite good. So no many new infections came. So they start now slowly to open restaurants and everything. But nobody knows. Will they close it again, or it's changing from day to day.
Well, thank you so much. Instagram tells me we have 1 minute. It's a good time to say our goodbyes. Well, I then can say something in German. Danke schön für unsere Gespräch, unseres Gespräch. Das war sehr interessant, mit dir zu sprechen.
Wow, Julia.
Ich habe in Bielefeld für 3 Monate gelebt. Also ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch.
Wow.
Grüße aus Russland.
Очень хорошо.
Да, привет из Питера. Спасибо тебе. Vielen Dank. Thank you so much, and hope to see you in person either here, if the borders open, or somewhere else. Also, if the borders open.
Thank you so much, Julia, for the whole interview. It was a big joy. It was my first live interview, by the way.